In the world of blood and powder, everyone fears the man with the gun. But the man who counts the money? He owns them all. In the rural valleys of Michoacán, Mexico, where poverty carved deeper than the ravines and opportunity died young, a family of 18 siblings learned a simple truth. Survival wasn't about strength. It was about numbers. The González Valencia clan earned the nickname Los Cuinis, after a local ground squirrel known for having over a dozen babies at once, a creature that multiplied faster than predators could hunt it. Among those 18, one would become more dangerous than any enforcer with a rifle. Abigael González Valencia, born October 18, 1972, who the world would come to know as El Cuini. While other boys in Michoacán dreamed of becoming sicarios, hired killers with gold chains and respect earned through fear, young Abigael had different ambitions. He didn't want to be the man pulling triggers. He wanted to be the man who decided when triggers got pulled. In a land where violence was currency and death was cheap, he understood something revolutionary. Money doesn't just talk, it rules, and he would become its emperor. In the 1980s, as a young man, Abigail illegally crossed into the United States and settled in California, where the American dream looked more like a hustle than a fairy tale. There, among the invisible labor force of undocumented workers, he met a man who would change everything. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known by a name that would one day terrify nations, El Mencho. Two poor boys from Michoacán, both working for pennies, both hungry for power. They weren't just friends. They were architects of an empire that hadn't been built yet. Together they began working as distributors for the Mencho cartel, a trafficking organization rooted in Jalisco that was controlled by the Valencia family, Abigail's own blood. While El Mencho handled operations, muscles, and enforcement, El Cuini did what he did best. He watched the money. He learned the routes, the prices, the margins. He studied how powder turned into dollars, how dollars turned into power. And in those California streets, far from home, he began crafting a blueprint that would one day make him the richest and most dangerous narco-financier in the world. But California was just school. Mexico was the battlefield, and Abigail González Valencia was about to graduate. By the early 2000s, the Mexican drug trade was a war zone. Old cartels crumbled under government pressure and internal betrayal. Blood flooded the streets. Leaders were arrested or executed. In chaos, there are always two kinds of survivors: those who fight and those who think. El Cuini was the latter. In 2009, after the Mencho cartel collapsed due to arrests and killings of its leaders, an internal power struggle erupted. One faction became La Resistencia. The other became Los Torcidos, the Crooked Ones, led by El Mencho and El Cuini. The ensuing war for Jalisco's drug routes was brutal and unforgiving. Bodies stacked in alleys. Torture became a warning. Terror became strategy. But Los Torcidos won, consolidating power across western Mexico. Then came the transformation. Los Torcidos rebranded itself as Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG. And with it, El Cuini founded something even more dangerous: Los Cuinis, the financial machinery behind the violence. If CJNG was the sword, Los Cuinis was the hand holding it. El Mencho married Rosalinda González Valencia, El Cuini's sister, cementing the alliance in blood and marriage. But here's the twist that governments didn't understand at first. Some intelligence sources believed that while El Mencho was the face of CJNG, Los Cuinis, and the Valencia clan, specifically El Cuini, actually controlled the cartel. El Mencho was the general. El Cuini was the shadow pulling strings. One terrified with bullets, the other conquered with billions. And as CJNG rose, dripping in violence and infamy, Los Cuinis operated differently. They didn't need headlines. They needed bank accounts, shell companies, and international connections. While sicarios killed in broad daylight, El Cuini moved money in the dark, millions at a time, invisible and untouchable. This was no longer just about stuff or crystal. This was about building a financial empire so vast, so complex, that even governments couldn't unravel it. Most cartels are regional. They control territories, smuggle product, kill rivals. But Los Cuinis? They weren't a cartel. They were a multinational corporation disguised as criminals. El Cuini coordinated international trafficking operations across the Americas, Europe, and Asia, turning powder and crystal into rivers of cash flowing through continents. Here's what made Los Cuinis different and terrifying: the European and Asian gamble. El Cuini understood that competing for US markets meant war with Sinaloa and other cartels. So he pivoted. Instead of fighting for America, he targeted Europe and Asia, where the profit margins were even higher and competition was weaker. He built partnerships with Colombian suppliers, South American traffickers, European distributors, and Asian crime syndicates. Authorities in Europe and Asia struggled to stop the flow of stuff or seize the proceeds that Los Cuinis received. While other cartels fought over scraps in Texas and California, El Cuini was flooding Madrid, Paris, Sydney, and Tokyo with product at premium prices. One intelligence source made a shocking claim: Los Cuinis was the richest drug trafficking organization in the world, surpassing even the legendary Sinaloa cartel in net profit. Not in firepower, not in manpower, in money. Pure, untraceable, unstoppable money. The laundering masterclass. Money is the lifeblood of any cartel, but it's also the weakness. Tons of cash are heavy, obvious, risky. Banks ask questions, cops follow trails, but El Cuini had a solution: make the money disappear before anyone knew it existed. His brother Abigael González Valencia coordinated international money laundering schemes using shell companies to purchase assets across Latin America, Europe, and Asia. They bought ranches in Bolivia, luxury apartments in Uruguay, businesses in Argentina. Gerardo laundered over $10 million through Uruguay alone, the biggest money laundering operation in that country's history. Meanwhile, other siblings ran restaurants, architecture firms, boutiques, and real estate companies, all fronts to wash blood money clean. Los Cuinis used Chinese money laundering networks, CMLNs, cryptocurrency exchanges, bulk cash smuggling, and trade-based money laundering to repatriate billions. They didn't just hide money, they built an entire shadow economy around it. One US official estimated CJNG had $50 billion in total assets, much of it managed by Los Cuinis. The family business. What made Los Cuinis nearly impossible to infiltrate? They trusted no one outside the family. It was difficult for authorities to place undercover informants because the Valencia clan was wary of outsiders. Business was discussed over family dinners. Shipments were coordinated between brothers. Laundering operations were managed by sisters and cousins. Siblings like Erica, Ulises, Giovanni, Gerardo, Jose, and Rosalinda all helped bribe officials and launder money. If you weren't blood, you weren't trusted. And if you crossed them, Los Cuinis directed acts of extreme violence, including the murder of an individual who allegedly stole approximately 1,000 kilograms of powder. Bodies disappeared. Families vanished. Traitors were erased like bad debts. The message was always clear: you don't steal from the family. Ever. While El Mencho became Mexico's most wanted man, a ghost haunting the government, El Cuini stayed quiet. No flashy corridos sung about him, no narco mansions raided by helicopters, no public executions meant to send messages. He operated like a CFO of a Fortune 500 company, except his product killed thousands, and his profits funded armies. Some sources claim that González Valencia was the principal operator of CJNG, with Oseguera Cervantes acting as his deputy, despite the widely accepted notion that El Mencho was the top leader. Think about that. The man everyone feared might have just been the face. The real power? It sat in boardrooms, not battlefields. It wore suits, not ski masks. It didn't need fame, it needed control. El Cuini's genius was understanding what others didn't. The man with the gun dies first. The man with the ledger lives forever. Enforcers get arrested. Sicarios get killed. Bosses get betrayed. But the accountant, the financier, the man who knows where every dollar is buried, he's untouchable until he's not. By 2015, CJNG had exploded into one of the most violent and powerful cartels in the world. The cartel operated in 23 of Mexico's 31 states and expanded globally with significant presence in Europe, Asia, and Australia. They were trafficking tons of powder, crystal, and dope every month. And behind every shipment, every bribe, every bullet, there was El Cuini's money funding the war machine. But empires built on blood always attract wolves, and the wolves were circling. February 28, 2015. Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, a city of beaches, tourists, and tequila sunsets. And on that day, inside a quiet restaurant, Mexican federal police captured Abigael González Valencia in a joint operation. No gunfight, no chase, no dramatic standoff, just handcuffs and silence. The man who had built a multi-billion-dollar empire, who had outsmarted governments across continents, who had turned cartels into corporations, he was arrested eating lunch. But even behind bars, El Cuini wasn't done. He fought extradition to the United States for nearly a decade. He had the best lawyers money could buy, literally bought with narco billions. For years, he sat in Mexican prisons while his empire continued operating. His brothers kept Los Cuinis running. The money kept flowing. The powder kept moving. Because here's the dirty truth. You can arrest the man, but you can't arrest the system. In June 2025, his brother José González Valencia was sentenced to 30 years in a U.S. prison after pleading guilty to international powder trafficking. One by one, the family was falling. From 2006 to 2016, José coordinated multi-ton shipments of powder using air, land, sea, and even semi-submersible vessels, including one shipment in 2007, where the U.S. Coast Guard seized 4,000 kilograms from a submarine. Then came August 13, 2025. In a deal between the Trump administration and Mexico, 26 cartel members were extradited to the United States, including Abigael González Valencia. He was flown to Washington, D.C., where he faced federal charges: trafficking crystal and powder, engaging in organized crime, and possession of firearms. And this is where it gets interesting. 2 weeks after arriving in the U.S., El Cuini appeared in a Washington courtroom. He pleaded not guilty. But then came the bombshell. U.S. prosecutors revealed they had more than 76,000 documents and intercepted recordings to use against him. Think about that number. 76,000 documents, bank records, text messages, wiretaps, testimonies. Among them were text conversations between El Cuini, El Mencho, and El Menchito, discussing powder shipments, transportation logistics, pricing, and debts. Every deal, every dollar, every betrayal, all documented, recorded, undeniable. Prosecutors accused El Cuini of financing CJNG through a complex and highly profitable trafficking network involving powder shipments to high-paying markets like the United States and Europe. While he wasn't charged with money laundering specifically, prosecutors claimed he invested cartel profits in businesses and establishments, allowing him to step back from active trafficking while managing a portfolio of legitimate investments. He wasn't just a trafficker. He was a businessman, a CEO of death. And then, the final twist. El Cuini began cooperating with U.S. judicial authorities. His court appearance was postponed to January 2026. Prosecutors noted they were negotiating a potential guilty plea. Translation? The man who knew every secret, every account, every name, the most dangerous financial brain in cartel history, was talking. When the emperor of narco finance flips, empires burn. Here's the thing about Los Cuinis. They weren't just a gang, they were a philosophy. They proved that in the modern drug trade, violence is temporary, but finance is forever. Guns make headlines, but money makes kingdoms. Los Cuinis financed the founding and growth of CJNG, which traffics hundreds of tons of powder, crystal, and fentanyl into the United States and other countries. In February 2025, President Trump designated CJNG a foreign terrorist organization, putting them in the same category as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Not because they attacked America directly, but because their stuff and crystal kill more Americans than most wars. Even with El Cuini and his brothers behind bars, CJNG operates in over 40 countries and maintains its position as one of the world's most powerful cartels. Why? Because the infrastructure remains. The shell companies, the Chinese money laundering networks, the European distributors, the Asian contacts, the corrupt officials, the family members still free. You can arrest the king, but the kingdom doesn't disappear. In 2019, the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned a Mexican magistrate judge who took bribes from CJNG, a former governor involved in corruption, and multiple businesses linked to Los Cuinis, architecture firms, restaurants, clothing boutiques, all washing blood money. Every business, every official, every bank account, all part of the machine El Cuini built. And the most chilling part? Chinese organized crime groups revolutionized money laundering for cartels by creating systems where powder cash in Chicago gets exchanged for pesos in Mexico within hours through China-based networks. Los Cuinis pioneered partnerships with these groups, making their money virtually untraceable. The González Valencia family didn't just run a cartel. They industrialized narco-finance. They turned crime into commerce, murder into mathematics, terror into trade. They built a system so efficient, so global, so deeply embedded in the world economy that even a decade of arrests hasn't killed it. Today, Abigael El Cuini González Valencia sits in a U.S. federal facility, surrounded by evidence that could bury him for life. The emperor without his empire, the accountant without his ledgers, the genius trapped in a cell, waiting to see if cooperation will save him, or if his own family will ensure he never testifies. Because here's the brutal irony. The man who trusted only family might be betrayed by that same blood. Cartels have long memories, and snitches, even financial masterminds, don't live long. But whether El Cuini walks free, dies in prison, or disappears into witness protection, his legacy is carved into the underworld forever. He proved that in the 21st century, the deadliest weapon isn't a gun. It's a spreadsheet. The most dangerous criminal isn't the hitman, it's the financier. CJNG continues to traffic 5 tons each of powder and crystal into the US every month. The González Valencia family's businesses still operate. The Chinese networks still launder billions. The stuff still flows. The bodies still pile. The money still moves. Because Los Cuinis wasn't just an organization, it was a revelation. It showed every cartel, every trafficker, every criminal enterprise worldwide that the future of crime isn't violence, it's finance. It's shell companies in Uruguay, it's cryptocurrency wallets in Hong Kong, it's real estate in Spain, it's corruption in courtrooms and boardrooms. The squirrels multiplied. And even when you kill a dozen more are already born. Some men fear the man with the gun. Wise men fear the man counting the money. But the world fears the man who makes the money invisible. El Cuini didn't build a cartel. He built a blueprint, and it's still being used, right now, in 40 countries, by ghosts you'll never see coming. As of October 2025, El Cuini's court hearing was postponed to January 2026 as he continued cooperating with prosecutors. His testimony could dismantle entire networks, or it could paint a target on his back that no prison can protect him from. Meanwhile, back in Mexico, the violence continues. CJNG and Sinaloa fight for territories. New sicarios replace the dead. New tunnels get dug. New powder labs get built. And somewhere, in some quiet office in Jalisco or Guadalajara or Montevideo, another accountant is watching the numbers, learning the routes, studying the system that El Cuini perfected. Because empires fall, kings die. But ideas are immortal. And the idea of Los Cuinis, that crime is just business, that murder is just overhead, that cartels are just corporations without ethics, that idea is still alive, still spreading, still multiplying like squirrels in the underbrush. Too many to hunt, too smart to catch. The González Valencia family taught the world a terrifying lesson. You don't need to be the scariest to win. You just need to be the smartest. And in the game of blood and money, the smartest man in the room is always the one you never see. El Cuini saw everything. And now, from his cell, he's watching his empire outlive him. One shipment, one shell company, $1 billion at a time. The squirrels are still breeding, and they're coming for your neighborhood next.